Join Dalton and Jacob as they discuss the ever-changing world of trading card games. TCG Buzz starts now.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of TCG Buzz. I'm Dalton and I'm here with Jacob.
Hey guys.
So how are you doing today, Jacob?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about today's topic.
Are you now?
We're talking about BuddyFight, our favorite game.
BuddyFight? I almost forgot.
Yeah, we've never actually really taken an episode to talk about BuddyFight before, and now we finally get the chance to because there's a new season coming out.
Or was it because I bugged you enough about it?
A little bit of both.
Yes, this new series in BuddyFight's actually called BuddyFight DDD or DDD.
Oh, the jokes.
The jokes are there, people. They are there.
Post your favorite joke about that name in the comments, please, or share it with us on Twitter or Facebook. We'd love to hear them. We've been coming up with tons of them on our own, but none of them are appropriate for this show.
What are you talking about? They're all appropriate. You know, like these nuts. Get him.
Oh.
But now, in all seriousness, I kind of want to start us off a little bit about a little theory of what we believe the 3D stand for in the new BuddyFight DDD. What are your thoughts on what they stand for?
Well, looking at the logo for the new season of the anime, it has the word BuddyFight and then 3 Ds, one in light blue, one in orange, and one in purple. I think the D represents the word dragon, and then each D stands for one of the 3 dragons that the main characters of the series use.
Is that what the D stands for?
If you're Bushiroad, yes. If you're everyone else, no.
I actually kind of agree with you on that, especially since there's already 3 Dragon Worlds out there. One of them obviously being Dragon World. Then we have Darkness Dragon World and Star Dragon World. Dragon World's kind of your basic world, as you can tell, starting from the very beginning. It was one of the first worlds to actually get a trial deck. It has the most support in the game. It has 2 major attributes in it, being Dragon Knights and Armor Dragons. Dragon Knights, as you can tell, are humans on top of dragons, as such of knights riding on steeds, but the steeds are dragons. And then you have your armor dragons, which are your proud dragons, like Drum, a mascot, who are very proud of who they are and despise dragon knights and will basically kick your ass for it.
Basically, all you need to know about Dragon Knights is there are a bunch of famous dudes and ladies from history who ride on top of the D.
Oh, yeah. And now Darkness Dragon World is exactly like Dragon World, except for the fact that they kind of focus around black dragons, death, deep, and with black dragons actually being your spectral strikers, meaning that you would want to attack your opponent's monsters instead of actually dealing direct damage, because Spectral Strike actually either deals a damage or 2 damage depending on what monster you're using, which is a nice way to whittle down your opponent without actually having to worry about your attacks being nullified unless they have like a defense boost at all. Then you have your Death, which is more of your shadow divers, kind of completely ignoring your opponent's center, which is the only way to really protect yourself if you don't have a card to actually nullify an attack. Then you have your deeps, which were kind of your awkward secondary attribute, but still had more of a focus than, so say, your black dragons, because black dragons didn't have a huge amount of support. And then you have your Black Knights, which initially were kind of in the same boat as your deeps, but now with the most recent support with them, they kind of focus around your buddy monster and giving your buddies certain effects. And there's also spells that allows you to make all of your monsters on your field your buddy so they can gain certain effects. And then with Star Dragon World,
They have one playstyle and that's it.
they have 1 playstyle, 2 attributes. You have your Neo Dragons and your Drago Arms. And the biggest thing you get to do is cross knives, which basically means if you have a Neo Dragon on the field and a Drago Arms, you get to take your Drago Arms and place it into the soul of your Neo Dragon. And then your Drago Arms give certain effects to that Neo Dragon or allow you to do certain things. One of them, for example, actually negates an effect of a monster if you attack them or they attack your monster, which is quite nice, getting rid of Penetrate or even getting rid of Spectral Strike. Then you have obviously the basic ones, which boosts defense, boosts power, give you another critical, gives you move.
It's kind of like equipping your monster with other monsters. It's quite cool. My only criticism is that's really all they can do. You only have that one play style.
For now.
Yeah, maybe they'll come out with something new. I'd really like to see that.
Let's be honest, they probably never will, but let's be hopeful. If Dragon World can do it, Star Dragon World should be able to, especially since in the anime, it's supposed to be Dragon World, but when it hits its technology age and actually advances further.
Yeah, where are the futuristic Dragon Knights? That would be cool to see.
I've heard rumors. I think they are coming.
We'll see.
We will.
Now, could we talk a little bit more about the anime itself when it comes out?
Yeah, I agree, because I believe it helps link the TCG to the show itself.
So, the current series at the time of us recording is BuddyFight 100, and it really seems like it's pretty close to wrapping up. I'd predict within the next couple of episodes they'll be done. Then, right away, as Bushiroad's tradition, they take a week off of no new episode after the end of the series, and then boom, you're on to the next one.
But it's a sad case, because we're losing Drum.
Oh, spoilers.
I think. At least certain things are happening with Drum.
We'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Regarding the anime, it seems like there's going to be a significant change to the cast. We still have the same main character, Gao Mikado, but kind of his sidekick characters are going to be replaced. The current ones are Tetsuya and Zanya, a Magic World and a Cotton World user. And it seems like they're being replaced with Tsuku, who's a character that's already in the series, who's a Star Dragon World player, and a new character whose name is Gaito, who seems to be using Darkness Dragon World, which, going back to the logo, makes sense. Each one of the protagonists gets their own D. Regarding this new person, Gaito, we don't really know much about him yet, and it is a him. We've seen some images. He's got purple hair, and at first a lot of people thought he was a woman, but Bushiroad confirmed it's a guy.
Why can't they have a female protagonist?
I know, it would be really cool to see, and it would match, the palette, purple hair. You'd think, oh, it's a girl maybe.
I wouldn't go that far.
I know, especially in an anime. It would be really nice to have some diversity in the main cast and not have all the female characters just be side characters.
This is true.
Something really interesting to talk about are the villains. So we don't know why yet, but the current villain, whose name is Ikazuchi, or Yamigeto, his buddy, who's kind of the real villain, they're not really going to be in this series. They're being replaced by Kyoya Gan, who was the villain from the first season and who tried to destroy the world, had a buddy fight against Gao and lost, and said, oh, I'm good now. And then everyone let him go.
Well, I'm not 100% sure if he was a true villain in the first season. It seemed that everyone loved him. If you've seen BuddyFight, the original season, everyone loved him until the very point that Gao defeated him. Everyone started turning on Gao because why you hate? Why you a hater? Because he didn't like him just because of his thought process and what he believed in. So I really believe it came down to their ideals, where Gao was more like be friends with everyone type deal, and he was more let me try to eventually rule everyone and claim them as my friends when I'm really just using them as pawns.
But he also did try to summon an entire army of evil dragons to forcefully take over the planet. That seems kind of like a dick move to me.
Well, let's be honest. Any monster could really come over to Earth in BuddyFight and try to take over. It's just they had some human help in this one.
I would really like to know why, though, in this new season, they just let him go and do whatever he wants after he tried to conquer the world. Literally, it was like, oh, I'm a nice guy now. Trust me, believe me. Well, okay, you're not going to get arrested. It'll be great.
Well, if I'm correct with watching BuddyFight 100, towards the more recent episodes that they're having, they've been showing him more often and kind of showing his interest in the current events and how, spoilers, of course, the world is somewhat coming to an end and how Gao and his friends are trying to save it and seal away Yamigeto. It's kind of showing his true nature in a sense, because he's showing much interest into Yamigeto and its power output that it gives. And I feel that's where it might be his ideals again coming into play, where maybe he's looking for an energy source. But let's be honest, he's a villain. He's probably looking to destroy the world or something like that. Yeah, that's about it.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I've also heard that the majority of the current cast will be reduced to minor characters, and the Buddy Police, which, yes, that name's ridiculous, who played a very major role in the second season, aren't really going to feature in the third season at all.
Are the real police going to be featured in the third season?
And use actual guns instead of trading cards?
Well, I think they were going to use swords, because wasn't it Sanya's dad?
Yeah.
I feel swords and cards.
Swords with guns.
I was going to say swords with cards, but yeah, that works too.
Yep. Or all three.
Sword guns that shoot cards.
Genius, copyright it.
Yes, I will. Now getting back on track to BuddyFight Triple D or DDD, however you want to say it. In March, they're releasing 3 starter decks instead of the typical trial decks. I don't really understand why they decided to change the name of their trial decks / starter decks. It makes no sense.
From what I understand, there actually are 2 differences between a starter deck and a trial deck. These starter decks are designed to be a little friendlier to use for new players, with having less keywords and abilities for them to have to understand, and also providing better spell options that can actually be used after you've upgraded your deck and not spells that you instantly want to dump in the trash as soon as you can.
I don't know about that. I think there's a few in there, but...
And the other big difference is they come with a deck box.
Oh, you're right. They do.
And that's really cool. You know, you get a little something extra. I've complained before how they're kind of expensive and you don't really get much. But an extra deck box, I mean, even if it's just like a cardboard deck box, that's better than nothing. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's true. I will take it too, because I don't feel like importing a $60 deck box to hold my cards from Japan, no matter how cool they look.
These decks will be the first in the line of Triple D merchandise, replacing the BuddyFight 100 cards. So every product code normally would start off with H, standing for 100. So you'd have H Booster Set 1, or H Extra Booster, or H Trial Deck. And now it's going to be D.
D.
So they're the first in the line of D starter decks.
You have Scorching Sun Dragons, Cross Dragonar.
Dragonar? I don't know.
It's a weird spelling. It's basically dragon with AR at the end. And then you have Hollow Black Dragon.
Each of the 3 represent the 3 Dragon Worlds, go figure. The Scorching Sun Dragon deck is for Dragon World. The Cross Dragon, or however you pronounce that, is for Star Dragon World. And the Hollow Black Dragons is, well, Darkness Dragon World. So why don't we go over each one of them a little bit and just say how they play?
Yes.
In case someone's out there is interested in starting to play the game or just wants to pick one up to see what they're like.
Yes. Now let's start off, which is most likely going to be Gao's deck, Scorching Sun Dragons. It introduces a whole new attribute called Sun Dragons. I feel like they're going to be kind of like Armor Dragons, except they play somewhat like the archetype Crimson Battlers, where they rely on a certain feature on the field to actually activate certain abilities. Where Crimson Battlers, it was an item, but for Sun Dragons, it's going to be your opponent's center.
Most of the Sun Dragon monsters get special bonuses like extra crit or extra power if your opponent has an empty center, which I see that as 2 good things. 1, it'll force your opponent to play without a center because they don't want you to get those bonuses. And 2, for those decks that rely on not having something in the center, such as other Dragon World decks.
Or Raging Spirits.
Oh yeah, it'll really, really punish those types of decks. The thing that really interested me is not only do you have this mechanic of forcing your opponent to play with an open center, but you also have a lot of cards in it that force your opponent to play with an open center because you destroy their center. There are several cards in the trial deck, mainly monsters, that when they enter the field, your opponent's center monster is instantly destroyed. That's really cool.
That is. And then I just want to touch base on about one spell card.
I know which one you're talking about.
One spell card in this starter deck that basically destroys Dragon Shields in comparison.
It destroys its opponent's hopes and dreams.
It does. In Dragon World, there are 2 main Dragon Shields that everyone uses, and that's Green Dragon Shield, which nullifies an attack and allows you to gain 1 life, and Blue Dragon Shield, which nullifies the attack and you gain 1 gauge. This new Dragon Shield is called Sun Dragon Shield. You cannot have a monster in your center, so it shows why you want to keep your center open with Sun Dragons, and you gain a gauge and a life for the price of nothing. But it also has 1 bonus. If you do have 2 Sun Dragons out on the field, this spell cannot be nullified, which is heartbreaking to many people.
I'm a big person for spell nullifying, and that just makes me really sad, because that is by far the most powerful spell in most Dragon World decks that are running Sun Dragons. Not being able to get rid of it and basically letting them to get a nullify and a life and a gauge all for 1 card, that's a crazy advantage, and it's really quite strong. The only benefit to the player fighting against this is they do have to have 2 monsters on the field to get that forced anti-nullification.
But that doesn't mean they can't use it to save one of their monsters.
That is true. If I was playing against them, I'd do whatever I could to destroy their monsters before getting into the battle phase using spells to destroy them, because they wouldn't be able to use that against me when I did that. Now, the second deck, Cross Dragonar. To be honest, when I looked over this deck, all the cards are viewable. We know what they are. It was very boring.
Well, it is Star Dragon World, and they only have one playstyle.
That's true. It seemed like when they were first leaking a few of the cards, it would be a new archetype, and it technically is. Most of the monsters in it have Star Dragoner in their name, which made me think, oh, there are going to be some cards that utilize this. But in the trial deck itself, starter deck itself, going to take a while to get used to that, there isn't a single card that gains bonuses if you have Star Dragoner monsters on the field. So what's the point?
Does this mean they're also adding another Drago Arms of sorts? Maybe a Star Arms to kind of use the cross knives ability there, for if you have a Star Dragon or Star Dragoner, you can cross knives into its soul? Or do the Star Dragonars have Neo Dragon as their second attribute?
They are Neo Dragons, and they're only Star Dragoners in the name.
I see.
The other thing that really struck me as being really boring about the deck, there are a lot of vanilla cards in it, cards with no abilities. And there are also a lot of cards that are with new names and new art, but they're basically reprints from the last Star Dragon World Trial deck. Both of them come with a Neo Dragon, which has 4,000 power, 2 critical, 1,000 defense, and move. And both have it at 4 copies. Why would I want that in the first place? It's a bad card, and if I bought both trial decks, I'd be stuck with 8 of it.
Very true. And then if I'm correct, they also are releasing a new form of Jackknife. Where's Drum? But, of course, Jackknife being #1 Star Dragon World card out there, of course he's going to get another form, right?
Yep, but the interesting thing is this one's an impact.
Wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Did you say impact?
Yes.
It's...
We actually didn't touch these yet. I don't know how we forgot about the biggest thing in the entire game. Starting with Triple D, there are now monsters that are also impacts. And this new Jackknife is one of them.
I don't exactly know what this Jackknife does, because Star Dragon World doesn't appeal to me at all. But what I saw is you can have up to 4 copies, like a traditional monster. But the one difference is you can only play one of them per final phase. That's correct, final phase. And they can attack during your final phase.
It's really interesting because you can use them to get an extra attack at the end of your turn, but you can only do that once per turn. So if you have a hand full of them, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, you got a wasteful hand.
Add into that fact, from what we've seen, we've only seen like 3 or 4 different impact monsters so far, but they all have really big costs, typically 2 gauge and another restriction or 3 gauge, which that's a lot to be putting out for a monster, but they all have really strong abilities. In this case, the Jackknife is able to destroy any card from its soul, any of its Drago Arms, to remove any card from the field and put it in the drop zone at any time, and that is a great ability, but it's costly. So we'll see if it gets any actual play outside of, people starting out with their trial decks.
Very true. Yeah, I don't think there's much else for Star Dragon World besides finally introducing impact monsters, right?
Yep. Overall, that deck, kind of underwhelming. I want to see something new and unique for Star Dragon World, not just more of the same. Now, the one that does get me excited is the Hollow Black Dragons.
Does it get you hot and bothered?
Oh, it does. That D. Hollow Black Dragons, really, really, really cool. It's a new trial deck for, Black Dragons of Darkness Dragon World. And before, their playstyle revolved around using Spectral Strike. Whenever they destroyed a monster on the opponent's field, they'd also get to deal some damage, which was a great ability. The new playstyle for them instead revolves around forcing the opponent to mill cards, meaning they have to put cards from the top of their deck into their drop zone and constantly shrink their deck size, but also they gain special abilities for doing so.
And I know there's also number limits. Say maybe if your opponent has 10 cards in their drop zone, then a card may gain an extra critical, which is a quite nice ability as well. And I know that a few cards, I know a monster and an item that help you get rid of cards on top of their deck, which is going to be a really nice feature to this deck.
Now, I'm really interested to see if someone can build a deck using this new playstyle that, rather than focusing on forcing them to discard cards to get those abilities, instead focuses on forcing them to get rid of all of their deck, and then they have no cards left, and then they instantly lose. That's what I'd like to play them as.
I think that's going to be the very first thing that's going to be done.
The question is, will it work?
I have a good feeling it will.
Also note, this deck includes another impact monster, and his name is Abigail, and he is the buddy monster of the new protagonist. And the new Abigail is quite cool. This one, he costs 2 gauge, and you have to destroy a monster on your field to call him at final phase, so he's costly, but he's also really strong. That's one card I could see worth using.
Speaking of these impact monsters, let's jump back up to the start of this where we were talking about Scorching Sun Dragons. And let's talk about their impact monster, because all 3 starter decks have an impact monster. And for Scorching Sun Dragons, it's going to be Sun Dragon Ball Dragon, correct?
Bow, we haven't heard it spoken yet, but his name is Bal, B-A-L. And spoiler alert, skip forward about a minute if you don't want to hear spoilers for the second season of the anime. For whatever reason, Gao does not have Drum anymore. Either he leaves or he gets destroyed or something. We don't know yet. We won't know probably till the finale. But he gets replaced by this guy, and his name's Ball Dragon. He's a Sun Dragon, and he's cool.
And his impact monster form, it's, I believe, pay 2 gauge and put a Sun Dragon into your gauge, which I think is the least costly of all the impact monsters released with these starter decks, being in, he's really just 1 gauge, but then he has 7,000 power, 3 critical, and I believe 5 or 6 defense. So he's going to be a nice big hitter for your final phase and for the rest of the match when you have him out there.
And he has an ability.
This is true.
If your opponent does not have a monster in the center, he gets +1 crit.
Make it 4!
Yeah, a 4 crit size 2 with 7,000 power, and I think it's 5,000 defense, but I'm not sure. That's a crazy strong monster, even for the cost.
Yes, but if you really think about it, it's only really a gauge.
It's definitely quite a good card. So overall, Dalton, which of these trial decks are you going to be buying?
It's a no-brainer. It's going to be Star Dragon. Well, no, I'm joking. As you know before, I said I have no interest in them. I'm going to be heading towards the Scorching Sun Dragons because I love my Dragon World. I have plenty of decks and cards and different play styles, and Dragon World has too many cards.
You have a deck for almost every archetype of Dragon World. I think the only one you don't have a deck of your own for is Thunder Knights, and that's because I play it.
I'm going to have to say yes and no. I've played every archetype, but I don't have every deck for them, because I used to have a Dragon Knight deck, but then I got rid of it for another style of armored dragons, which is called 4000 Festival, which basically surrounds size 1 monsters in a set spell called 4000 Festival, which gives them penetrate and allows you to bring back 1 for a gauge and paying its call cost at the same time. But now, going on to that, what do you have the most interest in with these 3 starter decks, Jacob?
For me, it would definitely be the Hollow Black Dragons. I've always liked decks that force the opponent to lose cards. That's always been one of my favorite things to do in TCGs. That's the type of deck I've used to play heavily in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've been looking for something that fits that bill in BuddyFight, and now we've got it. I don't know how many of the cards from the trial deck I'm going to end up using, but I'm going to use it as a good base for that style deck.
So it sounds like you have no confidence in actually depleting your opponent's life points, huh?
Nope. I would love to just force my opponent to deck out, and they're still sitting at like 10 life, and I never once dealt damage to them. That would be beautiful.
Jacob for the deck out win.
Yes. Now, starter decks are cool and all, but there are other releases coming out for Triple D.
What? Are you for real? There's more?
There is more we get to talk about, and I'm super excited about this one. We've got the first Triple D booster set coming out, and it actually comes out pretty soon. I was quite surprised. It comes out April 15th of this year, which is really exciting, so we don't have that long to wait. And it's called Unleash the Impact Dragon. It sounds really cool, a really nice name, and it fits, being that Impact Dragons are kind of a thing now. And this set will support Dragon World, Star Dragon World, Darkness Dragon World. Those 3, coming straight off of getting brand new decks. A lot of people are going to want support for them. And they're going to have a nice place to get all of that at once. And then Magic World, because Magic World needs some good support.
So I'm having a feeling with this Magic World support, because there's not much information on it, but I have a feeling that it's going to be supporting the Drago Wizards, since that's the only dragon-based cards in Magic World so far, unless they make magical dragons in Magic.
I'd really like to see more Drago Wizard support, but I'd also like to see a lot more of the general Wizard support, because Wizards kind of need it. 72 Pillars, the other attribute, they have almost everything they need, especially if you're playing with the Omnilord Osbrodi, as we call him.
Yes, Osbrodi.
10,000 power. No.
50,000 power.
50,000 power, 10,000 defense on a size 3 is absolutely insane, and the ability to just keep him going and going and going and going.
Energizer Bunny.
He's quite good, and they're quite strong. Now, what about some of the other worlds? What do you think is going to get supported? I mean, we know Dragon World's going to get Sun Dragon support. They're not going to release a whole bunch of new shiny play toys for Dragon World users and not support them up the butt.
This is true. I heard obviously Sun Dragons, and then 2 others. You have your 5th Omni, which is the most recent and probably one of the more populars. Maybe, I believe it's the meta right now because 5th Omni is almost OP. But then we also have another archetype, one that we got super early in like the very first, maybe second booster pack, like season 1. Blue Sky Knights are coming back.
Oh,
just like Boomerang Dragon.
Blue Sky Knights were an interesting archetype from way back, and they focus on just crazy life gain. Gain life here, gain life there, gain life here, gain life there, until you have like 50,000 life and your opponent's just like, I give up.
Yes.
And they had one set of support in an extra booster. It was Dragon versus Danger. And even then, they weren't that strong because they were missing some key support.
A lot of key support.
Yeah. And they've gotten worse and worse with time. And we've always joked around about how they're the abandoned Dragon World archetype.
Which is weird because all Dragon World cards get supported.
But it turns out Bushiroad remembers them.
Yay!
And they're getting more support, which is really cool because it's one of the more unique archetypes in the game, and they've just kind of been ignored.
And one of the cards that they are getting, as you kind of heard when I announced them, is Blue Sky Knight's Boomerang Dragon. A lot of you who've watched the anime might know Boomerang Dragon as a dragon that size 0 with basic 3/1/1 for its stats.
I think the original is 2/1/2.
Yeah, I think you're... No, I feel like there's a 1. It's 2 1s. But whatever. Very low powered size 0. But with the ability to return back to your hand. And at the time he was released in the Golden Buddy pack, the perfect pack. So, and one of the harder cards to get, no less. I had 2 copies and I traded away, thinking, I can probably get more copies, and I've never gotten a copy since. He's a really unique card, especially with a certain card called Dragon Return System, which anytime a card returns back to your hand or to your deck, you gain a gauge. But with Blue Sky Knight's Boomerang Dragon, when he returns back to your hand, you gain a life. So just imagine you have Dragon Return System and Blue Sky Knight Boomerang Dragon. You're gaining a life and a gauge every turn almost. There's no stopping you there.
And there are a whole bunch of other cards you can combo that with to just gain life and gauge like crazy. It'll be a fun thing to mess around with and see what works and what doesn't.
The funniest thing I think is I don't think he'll be in a Blue Sky Knight deck.
No, I can actually see him seeing play in a lot of other decks that could use that life gain. Some archetypes probably won't need him, but like Crimson Battlers, they're a very aggressive deck that has lots of gauge to spare, and they don't do a lot of healing, but they could maybe use a little. And they already tend to use Boomerang Dragon, so upgrading him to the Blue Sky Knights version might not be a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about some of the other worlds? Let's see. Is Star Dragon World getting anything new and interesting?
General Star support.
Yay. Oh, so boring. Hopefully there will be 1 or 2 interesting cards, but so far Star Dragon World has honestly been one of the most boring worlds for me personally.
I don't know why I was so excited for it.
I know. But let's talk about one of the ones that is interesting.
Yes, Darkness Dragon World is going to be getting support for Black Dragons, obviously, and Purgatory Knight.
I'm a Purgatory Knights user. I've got a really nice Purgatory Knights deck, and I'm excited to see them coming back. They were first released right at the end of the first season of BuddyFight, and they've gotten 1 or 2 extra cards since then, off and on, but they haven't had serious support in quite a while. And now I'm excited, because that means I get to completely redo my Purgatory Knight deck and make people rage even more.
Yeah, because with the original Purgatory Knights deck, it was all about destroying your allies and being able to attack again with Demios. But now I'm kind of wondering if they're going to add a new style to Purgatory Knights with this new set and with the whole fact of impact monsters, maybe give them something a little bit more special or make them even better, or just improve on the whole Demios fact, which, let's be honest, is most likely going to happen.
What I'd most like to see is a good backup to Demios, another strong monster.
His brother?
That'd be funny. Or just like, hi, I'm Demios' cousin. My name's Steve. Steve, the Purgatory Knight. It'd be really cool to see something like that. And I'd also really like to see some new weapons that would be good for their playstyle. And some interesting spells, because they haven't gotten any spells in quite a while, and the ones they have are kind of boring.
And hopefully their items won't be Dragon World items, but darkified.
You mean the Dragon World weapons that are emote?
Yeah, let's go with that. I think that's a good analogy there.
I believe there's also going to be more generic support in the set, which my guess will be more Battle Deity Robo stuff.
Yes, I believe that's correct as well, especially since it seems to be the only attribute in generic world, which really doesn't have its own flag or anything, that could probably survive on its own, to be honest.
They're actually decently strong, which is really interesting. The other two archetypes that they had for generic world were chess, which had a really gimmicky impact and nothing else that was good. Honestly, pretty garbage.
Yeah, because you couldn't even use it like a real chess game. She's only having 4 pawns.
And then tarot, I've never learned how to say that word.
I think it's Turret?
I have no idea. I hear some people say it with a silent T, like tarot.
I can see it.
I don't know. You guys can all yell at me for mispronouncing it, but I'm going to say tarot. But with tarot, they had a few really good strategies, but you couldn't build a deck with them alone. They only really worked with other types of cards. The two big ones, Magic Tarots, they worked well with Magic World, and they worked well with Darkness Dragon World, but that was about it. Big issue was if someone saw that you were playing a deck with them, and they saw your flag, they knew exactly what your playstyle was going to be, exactly what your strategy was going to be, and they knew how to break it.
Well, let's be honest. I think initially that's what BuddyFight was going for with generic cards, is they give specialized spells or monsters in this generic group that you can throw in with any deck, which will help you buff up decks. Just like with Ancient World, when it initially was out with no weapons. And how fun was that? And then Generic World happened to get a weapon that can attack even though you have a monster in your center, which initially was really great, but then finally Ancient World started getting their own weapons, and it got outcasted super fast, and it was
Now no one plays Fortune Bow anymore.
I think it was Burning Bow.
Maybe. Maybe I'm thinking of the bow from Kid Icarus Uprising. I get those two mixed up a lot. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I really, really like BuddyFight and I really, really like Kid Icarus Uprising. And I started getting into them right around the same time. I don't know.
I'm a troubled child, indeed.
Now, are you ready for some big news?
Big news?
Mm-hmm.
Big news? What kind of big news?
Regarding this booster set, they're changing the rarity ratios.
Whoa.
It's going to be a lot easier to get double rare cards, which is wonderful. And it's going to be a little bit easier to get triple rares. So you're going to get better pulls in one box than you would have used to get, which is very welcome. I'd love to see more good cards in a box. And it also will probably make it so singles will cost less because they'll be more available.
No more Cyber Ninja Squad. Goddamn Grandfather Clock, Mary Sue, Takasuke, frickin'. What else in that frickin' deck, man?
Like half the cards in that were printed at high rarity are super expensive, and it's insane. And, you know, I see Bushiroad's trying to combat that. The other big thing, which, you know, I'm very happy about the rarity changes. This one I'm not so sure about. With all the previous sets, you could get SPs, which SPs were normally double rare or triple rare cards from the set. And you had a very rare chance of getting them, but shinier, with normally a textured surface on them, and they had gold, like holographic things on them, and sometimes different artwork. And they were just meant to be a really rare, cool version of that card.
You can kind of say that it was like the foiling in BuddyFight, if you've ever opened a pack where double rares are actually designed a certain way where they're nice and kind of glossed over, nice and shiny. And that's what foil cards were, which could be commons, uncommons, and rares. And SPs you can kind of consider to be the buddy rare form of your triples and double rares.
Well, I really like them, and I know you really like them.
I love them.
They don't exist anymore. They're gone.
Baby, come back.
Instead, what they're doing is they're taking the buddy rare cards, which are pure gold versions, and they were typically rarer than an SP. And they're, instead of having one per set, instead they're having like 6 or 7 different ones in the set, and they're easier to find. I don't like this. Buddy rares are cool and all. I've got 1 or 2. But I think SPs honestly were more interesting because you got to see different artwork and it wasn't all gold. So you get to see the nice background and you get a really nice texture to them. But we're not going to get that anymore. And that kind of bums me out and makes me want to go on eBay and buy every SP I can find. You want some more news? We're not done talking about new sets. Recently, Bushiroad revealed their plans for the first half of 2016 and all the sets they're going to be releasing. And they mentioned that in June, they're going to be releasing a new type of booster set called an alternate set. And I'm like, oh, it's just going to kind of be like an extra booster or something. But that's not the case. The most interesting thing about them, we don't know the name for the first one that's going to be released. All we know it's going to be released in June. But what's interesting, they're English exclusive, meaning they don't exist in the Japanese market. You can only get them in English.
Well, this makes no sense. It's typically Japanese exclusive, never English exclusive. Are you sure this is right?
I'm positive. It's really interesting. But I guess the reason they're doing this is so we can get some of that Japanese exclusive content over here in an easier form. It's going to be filled a lot with formerly Japanese-only promo cards. And instead of having to go to special Japanese events in Japan and fly all the way to get just this one promo card, you'll be able to open a pack and get it. Also, there have been times where they've released trial decks or special decks in Japan only, like the Buddy Rare Double Deck, which was Dragon World and Legend World, and the Buddy Rare Triple Deck, which was Dragon World, Star Dragon World, and Ancient World. And we didn't get those. Instead, the cards that were in them were slowly put into booster sets. If a player really wanted them, they had to go and buy a whole bunch of different booster sets to get the cards they needed. Now they'll all be in one place.
I know how that feels. I remember making a Legend World deck. So much money. Mm-hmm. So much just to get a flag.
Yeah, we're getting some Legend World flag reprints soon. I don't know why they made that flag so hard to get.
Well, I don't understand why they just didn't make decks for them in the first place instead of, nope, no hate towards Dragon World, but they could have scaled back on how many decks they made for them. They could have thrown a Legend World deck there, an Ancient World deck there. Even Magic World took forever before it got its first deck. And let's be honest, those were the Dragon, Danger, and Magic were the first 3 worlds we were introduced to.
Yeah, it's crazy how Legend World, who really should get a trial deck, hasn't gotten one yet. The same goes for Ancient World, though I don't think as much.
Yeah, if they made, I don't know if they should necessarily, especially since if they would, it would be overpowered right away. Because that's what happened initially with like the Dual Seeker deck. Of course, you had to buy packs and find all the cards for it, but it was super strong until finally better cards for certain worlds came through, and now he became less popular, and now he's actually coming back too with Ancient World cards.
Right, and now you've got Raging Spirits, which are the hump that everyone has to get over and be stronger than.
What are those? Now let's kind of steer away from alternate boosters because it looks like we're kind of running down on time here. Jacob, is there any sets out there that have been released or coming out soon that our fans should be aware about?
Yes, there are a couple sets coming out for different games, but there's one really, really noteworthy set coming out that I wanted to talk about.
Pika-P?
Pika-P.
Oh, yeah!
Pokemon Generations. If you guys don't know, this year is Pokemon's 20th anniversary. Yeah, I know, we're old.
Hey, I'm 20.
I know, we're the same age as Pokemon.
Yeah!
Nintendo is doing a whole bunch of things to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Pokemon. We're getting a really weird Detective Pikachu game on the 3DS that looks interesting, where there's a Pokemon fighting game coming out for the Wii U. But most importantly, in my opinion, there's a Pokemon TCG set coming out towards the end of February on the 22nd. It comes out on the exact date of Pokemon's 20th birthday, and it's called Pokemon Generations. And it has 2 things of note. A lot of your classic generation Pokemon are coming back with a vengeance. You've got a Venusaur EX, a Charizard EX, and a Blastoise EX. But you also have evolutions of each of those 3. So you've got a Mega Venusaur EX, a Mega Charizard EX, and a Mega Blastoise EX. That's really cool. And they're really, really strong.
Yes, that's going to be quite a big help for people who run certain decks with those Pokemon there.
And there's an Articuno coming out that was Japanese exclusive for quite a while that I know people are really excited about. There's a Vaporeon EX in the set, which seems pretty cool. But the thing that really intrigues me is the possibility of getting some reprints in this set, which could be really interesting. One of the really cool things they're doing is the day that the set launches, as it's also the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, Nintendo has partnered in the US with Toys R Us to do a special event. So if you go into Toys R Us on that date and you buy anything Pokemon related, you get a free booster pack of Pokemon Generations, a pin for the Pokemon 20th anniversary, and a poster. That's really cool.
Nice.
So what I'd do, and I'll probably do, is buy a couple packs of Generation if they're out, and get an extra pack and a pin and a poster for free.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Make sure to visit our sponsors who make this podcast possible by visiting tcgbuzz.com/sponsors. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends on Facebook and Twitter, or submit a show review. You can do this by visiting tcgbuzz.com/4. That is the number 4. And until next time, I'm Dalton.
And I'm Jacob.
And this was TCG Buzz.
Thanks for listening to TCG Buzz. New episodes can be found on tcgbuzz.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. For box openings, deck profiles, and more,
TCG Buzz is a
make sure to
proud member
subscribe
of
to our
Newsmakers
YouTube
Podcast
channel.
Network, an ever-growing network of podcasts covering many business and entertainment topics. Please check them out at npcn.tv.